Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. Today we have Dan McPherson with us, all the way from Ann Arbor, Michigan. He's the founder of Leaders Must Lead. And today we're going to learn from him about his journey, how he came to form this company, what did he do before then, and what's he doing with this company? What's his legacy? Where is he moving with it? Welcome, Dan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to connect with you, and I look forward to being part of the show.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Your early years, what did you do and where did you work and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. When I was younger, when I was particularly very young, I was exposed to a lot of crazy stuff. When I was 2 years old, I was hidden from my father for 6 years. And then when my mother brought me back into town, we were really mired in poverty to the point to where she sold herself so that we had a place to stay, and we had half a hot dog in the house and not really a lot to eat. And then she remarried, and I was exposed to violence and drugs and just all sorts of stuff, to the point to where by the time I got to 16 years old, I felt hopeless and I felt unprepared, and it led to my first suicide attempt. And surviving that, I came out of it with just a clear understanding, or the beginnings of it maybe, that your environment, the people that you're around, the places you are, that they exert influence, but it's your choices that truly create change. And that really has driven me through a lot of my life. I went, like so many people, I went to high school, I went to college, I did those things. I went to the University of Michigan, go blue, so I love that. And I still live in Ann Arbor, or I live again in Ann Arbor as the case may be. And I then went on this corporate journey. I went through straight commission in-home sales and actually moved to Maryland and Indiana and all over the country for a little while. I started leading teams. I decided I wanted to get out of the home improvement world. And so I moved into more standard retail and went into district leadership and then executive leadership. Had a lot of success, did a lot of really good things. At some point, I recognized that I wanted to do something that was more significant in my mind. I believe those roles can be very significant, and I love the opportunity to impact people, to lead leaders, to help shape and grow others and give them a chance for success. But I knew I wanted to do it on a broader basis. So about 10 years before I made the leap that we'll talk about, I decided I need to learn more. I didn't want to step out and be the person who had a really narrow little bit of knowledge that was super deep in one area, or the person who was really wide but super shallow. So I spent 10 years learning about every aspect of every company I was with and being able to then go in and even train those departments. I got to a spot 4 years ago now where through a series of events, that all started at our karate school and being encouraged to listen to a podcast, that I recognized I either need to do it or recognize that I wasn't going to do it. I don't have any not do it in me. So I had figured out I'm going to do this. I'm going to jump off the cliff. I'm going to go do the thing. And when our supervisors, our senior vice presidents flew in to the large company I was working with, I was in airport retail at the time, and they said, "Hey, here's your third promotion in 5 years." I paused and looked at them and sat back and said, what would it look like if I declined? I resigned, jumped off the cliff, and started Leaders Must Lead.
That's great. And how long has Leaders Must Lead been in existence?
We've been in existence for 4 years. And I say we, the first couple of years were me. But now I'm fortunate to have an incredible team, and they do a lot of really cool stuff. But yes, it's been 4 years.
So let's talk about that year when you made the transition, right? So here you had a cushy job, you're being offered a promotion, and on the other end, you have this uncertain territory. You have an ambition, you have a passion, you want to go after it. I'm sure you had a family to support and all of that stuff. How did that all work out? What was it that made you jump?
Well, it was terrifying, I can tell you that, but it was also something that I knew that I had to do. People ask me how I decide what I'm going to do in the world, and I like to say that I do the things that I can't not do. And it got to that spot. It got to that spot where there were decisions being made that I didn't agree with ethically, that there were people that I just didn't want to work for. I do believe that you work for people, not companies. And it wasn't that they were bad people. It's just that we didn't see things eye to eye. My frustration every year or two would kind of well up of my dissatisfaction with what I was doing. And I got to a spot, as I said, where I just knew that I had to go do it. I had to say, I'm going to do this thing. And it was really tough because I was making more money than I ever thought I'd make in my life. I was finally debt free, doing some really cool stuff, enjoying life in a lot of ways, but I just wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And to your point, yes, I was supporting a family. There is no other income in my house. My wife and boy were there. And when I came home and said, so I'm going to go to zero to start a new company, their looks were skeptical. I guess they were also supportive and we did it, but they were definitely concerned. And throughout my life, I've had to make a lot of very difficult decisions, and I've never shied away from making the tough decision, even if it's inconvenient. And this was a good case of that. So I said, let me make a plan. And I made the plan before they flew in. I made a plan and I jumped off. And then when I jumped off, of course, I recognized that 2/3 of my plan was probably not what it needed to have been. And that all of my experience, even leading thousands of people and hundreds of millions of dollars, hadn't prepared me for the fact that I was now alone at zero. And I had to figure that out. That was a scary time, but it was cool. And I got to learn what I was really not good at. I already knew what I was good at. I got to learn deeply and quickly what I was not good at, and also learn which lessons from other people that I was choosing to listen to and which I may have forgotten for a time.
So let's walk us through, Leaders Must Lead. What all do you do under that umbrella?
Under that umbrella, today we do a bit more than we did in the beginning, but we are focused upon a very specific long-term mission. Our mission is to inspire, and I guess I'll back up. It's to significantly and positively impact the lives of 1 million creatives and entrepreneurs so that we can equip them with the foundations of success needed to achieve their dreams and inspire generational change in the world that will reduce the larger problems of the world over time, over the next 10 years, such as hunger, poverty, human trafficking, things like that. And so that's our goal. Everything that we do goes towards that goal. So what do we do under that? I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and I guess I meter that, so I say a lot. That was the main source in the beginning. I speak internationally. I was fortunate to speak in 8 countries last year and travel with a group called Freedom Summit Global and a bunch of amazing world-class speakers who were just wonderful to learn from. I also do some corporate training, and we are finding ways now to scale and provide the high quality training that I provide to my one-on-one clients in a group fashion, but in a very different way than we've found it done anywhere in the world. And that leads us to our Foundations of Success platform, which is launching next week. So all of that has come out of that initial dream and of me not really knowing what to do, but knowing that I needed to help people, not knowing who I needed to help, which now I have very clearly, and just refining that over that period of time, especially that first year.
When you look at what you do today versus when you started, your year one, did you have this all drawn out at that point in time, or is it an evolutionary thing?
I think a little of column A and a little of column B. I have always been very good with vision. If I understand where we're trying to go and where we are now, I can generally see all the steps on the path in between and talk through them and share that vision and see that come true piece by piece. What I was maybe not as clear on was the timing, was how long things might take. And I find that to be common among entrepreneurs that I coach as well, that they're like, yes, I'm really excited. That means it'll happen really fast right now. And the actual answer is that it takes some resiliency and some time and you have to go through it. So that part, the timing evolved. Also, there are certainly a lot of tweaks. I knew that I would speak. I knew that I would be doing coaching. I knew that we wanted to do something that impacted a broader group of people, but I wasn't sure what. I thought someday we might do a podcast, and now that's taken off in the last couple of years, but some of that was really vague and some of it was very clear, and that's what's changed.
What are some of the downturns and the upturns you've faced over the last 4 years?
Easy enough. The downturns are the ones that, of course, stick out to me the most. I am glad to talk about both. I like the upturns better. They're more comfortable. But the downturns, I would say that the first big hurdle that I encountered is recognizing that I am a refiner, not a creator. So I was creating a company from zero. And that creation word is important because like anybody, I can force my way through it, but it takes me a lot longer time. It's draining. It's hard to make something out of nothing. Give me a blank piece of page and I will struggle. Give me a draft and I can rewrite it. And the same thing is true. It's what I'd done throughout my career. I'd helped revise other people's drafts of their companies, basically. So creating that was hard. Recognizing that I was a refiner, not a creator, also explains why the bulk of my audience are either women entrepreneurs, creatives, or people in the LGBTQ community. Those are the three groups that I help primarily because they're overlooked and underserved, but they also tend to be super creative. So they do the things that I don't, which is wonderful. So that was one, learning that. The second, and I'll give you just a few, but the second was painful for me because it was the lesson that everyone told me. Understand your niche, understand who you serve. And I said, no. I've learned all these skills. I can help everybody. That lesson is good for everyone else, but I've got this. Yeah, not so much. When you try to help everybody, you help nobody, and that sort of sucks. And so you look around and find out, I have like 2 clients, and why am I not attracting clients? So that was a second one. The third and fourth, I would say, were much more recent. The third was my team. When I finally went to put a team together, I said, look, I've managed teams forever. That's one of my great strengths. I've worked on my own for a long time. That's one of my great strengths. What I neglected to recognize was that I had never gone within the same company from working on my own to having a team. And that transition, as most transitions are, was difficult. And I did it wrong the first time. And I paid a year of a penalty for that. And I let some people down. I share that story not because I'm proud of it, but because I think that people need to hear that A, there are real struggles, but also that even things that you have a strength in, there are some misses, some missed connections that you may have. And then the final one was the message of personal resonance. Over the last year, I have connected that there were 3 things I needed to be able to do better, and I couldn't have told you this at the beginning of that year. One is I needed to be able to share my mission in a very concise way. Think if you're being interviewed in a newspaper interview and you need to be able to put a quote, you've got to be able to share your mission very clearly and very quickly. And if it's a 5-minute answer, it's the wrong answer. The second part of that 3-phase process for me was that I had to be able to tell my story in a succinct way. And I was the 5 or 10 minute story guy instead of here's my 4 or 5 sentences. And I credit Tiffany Largy, who I went to her Do the Damn Thing event, and she was amazing in helping me to that. She's one of the best I've ever seen at getting people to tell their story in a positive way. And then the third was an even harder one. It was my clients that came to me and said, we love you. We love the content. Our lives have been changed by your content. But there's something that's in the way, and it's your image. And your image, like how you dress, actually needs to change. And I thought at first that they were telling me, Dan, you need to be someone else. And that's not what they were saying. They were saying I needed to be me. And I thought it took a while for me to stew on that and really change. And I went out and changed my wardrobe, and I feel 1,000 times better. And it's crazy because the second I did that, it was like the last piece fell into place, and personal resonance was there, and now people started flowing to me instead of me having to reach out to them. So lots of pieces. Sorry for so long.
No, I understand. Absolutely. So here's something I've been curious about, and let's see what you have to say about it. Everyone who has done something or started something, there's always a story of adversity. right? That's where they begin. And when it comes to creating an image, and I've seen this with marketing firms and such too, right? They always start from the point of adversity to how, I've been there and how I triumphed over it, and this is me today and I can teach you. And I see that a lot on Facebook. That every other person out there wants to talk about a story of adversity, and they keep talking about that story for decades. It's the same story. And some of us actually, you end up, fortunately or unfortunately, being on their email list or something, and it keeps coming back and back and back. What do you have to say about that? I think people evolve. I believe that we all evolve from time to time. And, yes, you started somewhere. Yes, you had a good or a bad story or an average story, and now you move forward. And you need to change your spiel as you go on. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, first, I will a comment on the last thing you said. I don't know that anyone has an average story. I think the one thing that we have in the world that is unique is our story. Mm-hmm. And I believe there's tremendous power in our story and in being able to share it. That said, I agree with what you're saying, although I might put it differently. I would say that we should share different parts of our story at different times, that we should share what's relevant in the moment, that our short summary may stay very similar. Mm-hmm. That 4 sentences that I gave at the beginning when you asked me about my background, may stay very similar. But the bulk of where I go from there, there's depth and breadth, and we need to mine it. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that we tend to tell the good and the bad of our story, but we don't tend to tell the ugly. Mm-hmm. And the ugly is where a lot of the growth comes. That's why I share it. Some of the things that I just shared are the lessons I've learned. Those are not easy for me to share, right? That isn't just some random story of adversity. This is me saying, this is what I did wrong. And I think owning that and being legitimately, I don't love the phrase because it's become more fad-like than anything, but I think being legitimately vulnerable to people causes your story to change. I also do think that there are parts of your story that should be out there a lot of times, because when we hear something, we tend to have to hear it. If you think of marketing psychology, we tend to have to hear it, see it, or interact with it 8 times to inspire action. And secondly, when we hear things that are separated by a certain amount of time, we will pick up another piece because we'll have logged the first piece and we'll pick up the second piece and hear it differently. So there is value in a degree of repetition, but there's also value in customization and speaking to the people you're actually trying to speak with. When it comes to mail lists, I wish more people would segment. I wish more people would segment and say, hey, these people I've been talking to for a year. So in year 1, they got all these messages, but in year 2, they're going to get a different set of messages and they're going to hear the part that has value to them. But I think most people look at mail lists as purely a conversion opportunity and not a service opportunity. And I think that's where they tend to miss the boat.
So looking back at your business and your journey, how did you land your first clients?
Like most people, relationships. I believe fundamentally that people matter most and relationships are everything. I was fortunate that as I managed large teams, I was able to create social proof of what I was doing, of the people that I'd worked with, of the people that I'd been fortunate to connect with and help develop and achieve their dreams internally, which gave me both a little bit of confidence, but also the opportunity to share stories of successes. And as I did, I joined a networking group. I did these things, but it was people that I had met personally who were going into business. One of my earliest clients was Dogmite Games, and they called me one night. They were at that point an artist and an out-of-work computer programmer, and they called and said, we had beers and we're going to start a company. I'm like, great. That sounds fantastic. Always a good plan. And they said, we're going to make wooden accessories for tabletop role-playing games. You want to talk about a narrow knit, right? Mm-hmm. I went and met with them and we talked, and I said, look, if you do all the things that we agree to, not that I tell you, but that we agree to, 3 years from now, you'll have $1 million company. And 3 years later, they had a $1.1 million company, and they were a very early client for me. There were others. I reached out a little more broadly. One of the things that I did is I did a super inexpensive 8-week class. And this follows a principle that I like, which is it's the beginning of allowing me to get paid something at every stage of development of material. So I started this 8-week class, and I really sat down and said, what do I know? What do people need to know? And the funny thing is, this 8-week class, if you look back, is exactly the beginning of the Foundations of Success that we're launching next week. And until you asked me that, I hadn't made that last connection. Mm-hmm. It was exactly the beginning of it. It was the first thing I did. And 2 of my current team members were actually part of that class. And we took them just for 8 weeks through training on sales, leadership, communication, time effectiveness, the 4 biggest cornerstones of success for everybody, really. And it was inexpensive. It was maybe, I don't know, $25 a class per person. So I probably made $2,000. It was a fraction of anything, but it transformed them, and it gave me content, and it gave me social proof that 8 people had went through it and believed it.
Awesome. And how do your clients find you today, or how do you find them?
A little bit of both. I find them by the same thing, by networking, by through my podcast and relationships that I make. I find them through my networking group, and actually half of my networking group I work with now. And those are the one-on-one clients. The broader clients are found now by word of mouth, by other. We have a lot of video testimonials, but we also have people who are out there really talking about the changes that we've been able to help them make. The podcast itself shares a lot of message of how dreams are real. And we have a group, a Facebook group that goes along with the podcast. So people join that and engage and connect and learn. And we give a lot of free resources. So I do believe that if I offer incredible value to people, then generally they're going to want more when the timing is right for them. So I play the long game. And that's hard for people who are starting a business to do, but it's something that I've always been committed to, that I would play the long game. I wouldn't look for just what I could get right now, but I would look for what can I get over the next few years? How can I build relationships that result in this, and do the right things to get the right result? Lastly, I would say that I'm shifting the percentage of time that I spend doing the things that only I can do, which includes sales, to a higher percentage as I've become more conscious of that, to make time to meet new people. Relationships are everything. That's my fundamental underpinning, is relationships are everything. Absolutely. And I'm not a marketing guy. To be fair, I'm a sales guy. I'm not a marketing guy. So I'm adding marketing people, but it's not my strength.
Right. And what about, when you look at your company and how you set it up over the 4 years, what about the evolution of technology and systems usage in order to get it to where it's today?
Yeah, that's immense. And it's mostly immense because I'm using systems that I knew that I would be using. So early on, I made a decision, having watched and helped a lot of companies grow, that I wanted to give them, I wanted to set us up to have the right level of freedom to not have to remake ourselves all the time. So I did pick software and plans and structures that would make things easier, that were maybe ahead of where I was. That said, I didn't account for how fast technology changes. So what has helped us? Initially, I started using a CRM, and I was using basic software for office suites and email and all of that, and branded that nicely, and had our first website. Since then, we created a custom website that does a lot more for us and provides a lot better image. But the software that I'm most particularly fascinated by are the things that do the small things that eat up your time, and it saves you. So one of my current favorites is Acuity. It costs me, $20 a month, $15 a month, and it saves me 10 hours a month. It's just like Calendly. I like Acuity a little bit better. They're both good programs. Using that, I initially started using it to coordinate the live events that we do. And that was fine. And I ignored the fact that I was paying for it and it might have other functionality. About 6 months ago, I said, wait a minute. I can anybody that's I'm going to have a conversation with about scheduling a time, I can just give them a link, and it literally saves me 10 hours a month. So it's those simple things. We just upgraded CRMs. We use software to help us connect different things, like Zapier does that. We're using Thinkific for our online platform, and learning about these different tools and how they can create a real ROI and leverage the time and the bandwidth that we have has been pretty essential for us. And that's something that's important to me. I'm very selective about them, and also because any program that we use, I'll become an affiliate for, and I will only be an affiliate for something that I believe in.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about sales and marketing. Creating courses, building things. The creative side is one thing. Selling is a totally different ballgame.
Yes, it is.
So how do you go about doing that?
There's half of this topic that I'm really good at, and half of this topic that I'm pretty terrible at, to be fair. The marketing side, not at all my strength. I'm glad to be finally adding people to my team who it is their strength, so that'll make life a little bit better. Historically, I've done marketing more through relationships and through building connections as opposed to through the flashy marketing skills that are in the world for consistency of social media. I've tried to get there, but it's just that part's just not my strength. Sales, on the other hand, is. I've helped hundreds of people make six figures selling in my life, and I've trained sales for many years. Actually, it's one of the core trainings that we offer now, whether it be to companies or individuals. And that I find to be very easy. And I find it to be very easy because I have a different view of sales than most people. I recognize that if you look for what problems people are having, what pain they're in, or what problem you could solve, and you aim at that, and you help them connect with that you win. I also find that the price is irrelevant. I could sell you something right now in the next 5 minutes that is $80,000. Even if you don't have it, you'd want to go find the money and you'd try and go do it, because value is all that matters. If I provide 10 times the value of something and make that really incredible and offer so much more that it becomes a no-brainer that I'd want to have it, and combine that with the fact that it solves a problem that I have, it's an easy choice. It's like anything else. If you hand someone $100 and they hand you 1,000, how many times are you going to hand them 100, right? You're going to do it a lot. So that part is, for me, it's been all about providing so much value in what we do that is just beyond undeniable. And I'm a non-fluff guy. So so my stuff may not always look fantastic. The Foundations of Success program actually looks really nice. It's the first thing I've done, candidly, that's like really pretty, other than maybe our website. But I'm much more about, give me real stuff that I can use right now that will make a difference in my life, and that will make a difference not in the moment, but they'll make a difference forever. And I think if you do those things and people know that you're authentic and sincere and not BSing them, and that you're not trying to sell them, but you're rather creating an environment where they can get a problem solved, then they want to buy, and the rest takes care of itself.
On your website, when I go, there's a login button. Is that to your membership site or Thinkific?
It is. Okay. Yeah, it is. It also works for those who are making purchases there. And it will be it's for the membership site that I was doing for my mastermind. Mm-hmm. And it's also for those who have made purchases and keep an account. The Thinkific site will actually be linked in a separate place, but when it launches next week.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your podcast. What's that all about?
Absolutely. The podcast is one of my favorite topics. It is called Dreams Are Real, and the RARE is all capitalized. We truly want to emphasize that no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter what you do or where you come from, that your dreams are real. And our goal is to inspire people and provide inspirational stories and tools that allow them to achieve their dreams. Our goal with that is to place and create a situation where you can see this eclectic group of guests. And we've had guests in our first 72 episodes, I think it was, that dropped this morning. We have had guests from, I want to say it's 18 different countries. We've had guests from 27 different careers. We've had as many women as men. We've had a lot of different orientations of people. And we've had people from all different backgrounds and starting points in life. And every one of them, they are proof that dreams are real. Some of them have a lot of influence. Some of them have none. And that's proof that every story has power and everyone's story matters. And that's really what we're about, is providing that connection and then helping people to achieve their dreams no matter where they are. I'm one who passionately believes that whatever you're doing, somewhere within the realm of your dreams and your passion, you can fulfill everything you need to in life, whether it be making as much money as you need or that you might have a target at, or serving a certain amount of people, that it's there. And that's what we're all about.
And this new program that you're coming up with, what will that be all about?
Foundations of Success is based upon the idea that most of us go through life and we get told, we get shown all of these quick fixes. We get shown all of these things that I like to call the 400 to 4, the 4 to 400, 4 weeks to 400,000, 4 weeks to 4 million. And some of those programs are incredible. I have friends who run some that are incredibly effective. The problem is most of the time when you have those, it's like putting a roof on a house that wasn't built, and so it crashes to the ground, which leads to a lower success rate. Very few people teach the foundations that are needed. Think of it like a house. If I'm putting the roof on, I want the walls to be strong. We're taking and building those walls for people. And it's not done very often because it's not sexy. Who says, I want to go learn about time effectiveness? Let me go sell that as a program. That's not done a lot. Or how to have difficult conversations, or how to leverage the power of small numbers, or how to evaluate risk. These are not sexy topics, but they're crucial topics for what people do in their real life. And we're taking those, we're putting them together using the Thinkific platform with slides, and it'll be in 2 to 8 minute segments. And we took all the trainings that I've done for the last, 10 years or so. Not even just when I've been here. We tore them all apart, put them back together, and we're offering them in a really positive, clear, super affordable way. And the interesting part is the genesis of this. The genesis goes way back to that class, but more that I mentioned earlier, but more recently, it's that I looked at my clients, my one-on-one clients, and I'm a guy who I like to look for patterns. My number one gift in the world is synthesis, seeing things in 100 places and putting a piece of it together from each one to make something better than any of them, no matter how good they were. And I looked and saw that there were topics that 100% of my one-on-one clients were paying to have me teach. Not 90 or 80, but every single one of them. And I said, how can I make that more affordable for them? How can I make that not be thousands of dollars a month for them to learn these things that I'm teaching everyone? And I also thought, if every one of them needs it, then everybody needs it. And if all of them believe that it's unique and they've never seen it before, there's probably a pretty big need. And that's what caused us to put it together. We are also bundling in the mastermind that I've run for the last few years, where we really do group training. And I have 50 hours of training that we put in there. We're putting it all together and making it as a membership opportunity. And I'm super excited because this is life-changing stuff that I can't find anywhere else in the world. And we look, because if something else is being done that is just like it, I'm the guy who won't do it. Because if the need's already being met, I'll just point you there.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So, you said you started with yourself 4 years ago. You've come this far. What does your team composition look like now?
So I mentioned that I did the team wrong last year. It was me saying, I'm overwhelmed. How do I get to a spot? And I don't use that word very, very lightly. It took a lot to get me overwhelmed. And then I got there, and I said, well, if I'd really justified doing a team, and I looked and I made a list, and I added up all my work and realized that I had 3,000 hours of work that was undone. And I said, okay, yeah, I've justified needing a team. That's pretty fair. And so I reached out, and I've helped other people do this since then. And I just thought, I wonder if anyone would want to help. I don't really have the money to pay them directly right now, but I can trade. I can help them. I reached out and I got a bunch of responses, and I went and I hired a couple of people. I brought them on full time, and I did it for trade, and they were going to get a percent of revenue, and we did all this. And then I realized I can't ask one person to do 20 different tasks. These are just not specialized enough in it. And then I did a pretty poor job of leading them at first in terms of just giving them clear direction, because I didn't know how to make that transition. I said earlier that I struggled in that transition. Now my team, I realized at the end of December I needed to lay it out, and I laid it out, and I said I need a specialist in each area, and we have pretty big aspirations. So as it turned out, I needed 20 people on my team, and that was intimidating a little bit to go from 1 to 20. But we laid it out, and I have now a specialist that each work 10 to 15 hours. And we really have 3 levels: specialists, coordinators, and directors. And they are by area. So we have coordinators for speaking and speaking engagements. We have or an event coordinator. Those are actually two open positions, but I have a Facebook group coordinator. I have and Dahlia is amazing. And I have a podcast coordinator is Anthony. He's incredible. And I have all of these wonderful people, a retail coordinator, we're hiring a CRM specialist. I have a copywriting specialist. And I found that if you find people who are passionate about what you do and they really love it and they are so connected that they want to be around it and they believe in the mission, that they will commit to helping you. And they'll commit, yes, for a future vision and for a future connection. And in some cases, even for an opportunity to earn 1% of what they do or for trade. But when you do, and you find somebody who's really good at each thing, like that's their passion, that's their world. This copywriter loves copywriting. Then you end up with an incredible team who all works together and builds relationships among each other. So that's what it looks like now. I have 10 of the 20 in place, and we're adding them one at a time and getting them to be able to do what they need to do. And they are making my life easier, and they're accomplishing their individual departmental goals and all working towards the overall company goal. And I'm just blown away by their support, and I love them dearly.
That's pretty awesome. Where can people find you?
They can find me pretty much everywhere. I seem to spout off in many places, but I would say the Dreams Are Real podcast is a good place. And the Dreams Are Real podcast group on Facebook is great as well. That said, you can find Leaders Must Lead or Dan McPherson on Facebook and on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place, easy enough to find. But Dreams Are Real and that podcast group is a pretty good entry point.
Well, this has been so great, Dan. Thanks a lot for sharing all your knowledge and your journey. Before I let you go, one takeaway for the listeners, anything that you want to leave with them.
I would leave the idea of this. People matter most. Relationships are everything. And when you do everything you can to focus on helping other people win, and you do it strategically, money is actually the natural outflow, which means you get the best at serving people and helping them, and you serve them first, and you build relationships with them, and you have a little bit of strategy in there, and you will find success, and that profit will give you the privilege to serve and make a big difference in the world.
Thank you so much for that. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you, and I hope to keep in touch. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you so much. I hope so too, man.
Hey, I hope you liked that episode. Please do make sure to subscribe to Plan B Success Podcast so that you can get alerts about these episodes coming out 3 times a week. You get to hear an inspiring interview and some inspiring talk that will move the needle for you on your way to success. Thank you very much.